same innards as the Sensation in Europe and the Sensation 4G in the US for T-Mobile, but of course adapted to run on Sprint's network. There is a CDMA radio as well as a WiMAX radio on board. As far as the specs, they're very similar. You'll see the same QHD display with a 960 by 540 pixel resolution, and of course a dual-core Snapdragon processor at 1.2 gigahertz inside. Now they've bumped the RAM to 1 gig up from 768 megabytes on the Sensation. So that's basically the rundown of the specs. And of course, you know, you have this crazy 3D camera. Now, those two sensors are 5 megapixel autofocus. There's a dual LED flash, so it's not the same level of quality camera as the Sensation, which has an 8 megapixel camera. So keep that in mind, because I'll talk about this a little bit later. But first, let me just give you a quick tour of this phone. So starting at the bottom here, you have the usual 4 capacitive buttons: the home, menu, back, and search keys. And at the top here, you have the HTC logo and the Sprint logo, but on top of that, you have an earpiece with some sensors and an embedded LED right roughly where my finger is, right there, my thumb. And then, of course, a front-facing camera as well. Now, if you turn it over, basically the back is dominated by this camera pod. You can see it's rimmed in red aluminum, but if you look really close, there are actually some dots here, a little pattern of dots, and that's where the speaker is hiding. Other than that, there's a little HTC logo here, and where it gets really interesting is if I walk you around the edges. So starting with the top, you have the standard 3.5mm headphone jack, a secondary microphone for stereo video recording, and probably noise cancellation. Of course, the power lock key, which unfortunately is really easy to trigger and feels kind of mushy. So one of the drawbacks is a lot of new HTC devices actually have, there's now a delay when you hit this power button before the phone turns on. Somehow they turn that feature off, and so the EVO 3D will turn on as soon as you hit this very easy to trigger power button. So that's a bit of a drawback. On the left side, you have a micro USB charge and data port, and really nothing else. On the bottom, you have the primary microphone and a little indent here to put your finger to pry off the cover. Now, just like the Sensation, the entire back is the battery cover, including these edges. So that's a commonality in design. Now, on the right-hand side here, this is really exciting. You have a gigantic aluminum double detent dedicated camera key. It feels really wonderful. Let me show you. So I'm here in the camera, and I'm actually in 3D mode right now. As you can see from the switch on top here, there's a 3D, 2D slider. And so I'm in 3D mode, and then I can switch it back to 2D here, which will look a lot less fuzzy. And then if I press the camera key, it doesn't actually move the phone too much, so you won't screw up your shots. Now, continuing along the edge here, you'll find a volume rocker. Again, feels really, really mushy. And I think part of the reason behind the mushiness is that this little pod is attached to the main body of the phone, but all of the other buttons are part of the back cover. So they detach as you detach the back cover. And I think it's not a direct kind of mechanical connection. And that's probably why it feels mushy. So here you see the HTC Sense lock screen. Of course, this is Sense 3.0, just like on the Sensation, and you have some shortcuts. For example, if you pull this camera into this ring, you get to the camera. That's very cleverly done. That's one of the few things that we really liked on Sense 3.0, so I just wanted to show it to you. I'm going to pop the battery cover off and show you the innards of this phone. So popping the battery cover literally means removing the entire cover, including the edges, as you can see. And so under here you see the pod with the speaker right there. And of course there's a micro SD card slot with an 8 gigabyte micro SD card supplied right there. And this is the battery. And that's pretty much all you have under here. Notice the translucent black finish here. Very similar to the Incredible 2 and some of the newer HTC phones. In fact, the Sensation again So let me pull this off, cover the serial numbers, and let's have a look at the battery capacity. I believe it's up here somewhere. So it's 1730 milliamp hour. It's a pretty hefty battery here.